Hi, welcome to another lecture from Dr. Tufte about trade, and this time about exchange rates. These are targeted at Colander's 11th edition, so this is towards the end of chapter 17 that I'm talking about here. I want to talk a little bit about exchange rates, okay? When we go to a foreign country, most of you know that you have to exchange American currency for the local currency, and we want to talk about how that works, okay? I'm going to use the example of Japan, okay, and the text actually uses the example of euros and gives you a diagram, which is figure 17-2, and that is titled The Supply and Demand of Euros. And I think that diagram is too weak to be really useful for you. So I'm going to build on that in this little lecture here and do it in terms of yen. Okay. So the currency in Japan is the yen. Okay. And it's given a symbol, which is a Y with 2 bars in it. Okay. I'm rounding to make things nice and easy. The current exchange rate is about 100 yen equals $1. Okay. Now, don't read anything into the size of these numbers. Okay. The value of a particular currency, whether it's really tiny or really large, is really a matter of kind of social or cultural preference. There's nothing wrong with yen being worthless. So if you look at this, this means that an individual yen is about worth a penny. Doesn't mean anything. It just means they prefer to express their prices in that way. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, when you look at exchange rates, there's actually 2 sorts of exchange rates that you could see, and they're equivalent, but they're reciprocals of each other. So one would be to express this as 100 yen to the dollar, but the equivalent way would be to express it as $1 for every 100 yen. Okay? Those mean the same thing, but as you can see, they're clearly reciprocals of each other. Now, the reason that we have these 2 exchange rates is this is the one that you would get entering Japan. So you get on a plane in LA, you got dollars in your pocket, you get off the plane, and there are exchange offices in the airport, and they're going to be quoting you this sort of rate. For each one of your dollars, we'll give you 100 yen. And that's the rate that American would pay going to Japan, or a Japanese person would pay returning from, say, San Francisco with extra dollars in their pocket. Okay? If you were entering the U.S., flying from Tokyo to Seattle or something like that, you would be faced with this exchange rate when you landed. Okay? And for every 100 yen you pulled out of your pocket, they'd give you $1 back. All right? Now, these exchange rates are important because, of course, when you get to Japan, you have to pay yen for almost everything. So all of your prices are going to be denominated in terms of yen. So an American is trying to figure out whether things are cheaper or expensive in Japan. And they might go to something like a McDonald's in Tokyo, and find that a Big Mac combo is about 800 yen. Okay, let me move this up a little bit. Oh, this is not going to work right. Hold on. I got to rotate a little bit. And then maybe I can get a little more room. Not really. I'll go to the next page. Okay. So you're wondering, what does that 800 yen actually mean? Okay, well, the way to do that is you get this price in Japan, whoops, I should put a dot on that, equal to 800 yen. And we're not interested in what the price would be in America, but we're interested in how, as an American, you feel about the 800 yen. And I have no idea why I put a $sign there other than I'm talking and writing at the same time. So just live with it. I erased it as best I could. Okay? In order to do this, you need to do a conversion where you multiply this by something which has yen down here. Okay? As I've emphasized in other parts of the course, when we have fractions and we do cancellation, we cancel units as well, and that's kind of important. Okay? So if we've got yen in the numerator here, we've got to have yen in the denominator. Might be kind of weird to think of me saying as yen in the numerator there, but I could write this as 800 yen divided by 1. That would be totally okay. All right? So if I'm looking for something that has yen in the denominator, it's this exchange rate here that I want to use. Okay? So that was $1 for every 100 yen. If I do my cancellation now, okay, I can cancel the yen symbol. Okay, I can cancel one set of zeros. I can cancel another set of zeros. And what I'm left with is a bunch of ones, which we can just drop, and that 8 and that dollar sign right there. So this is equal to $8. Okay. So if you're in Cedar City, that's kind of expensive for a Big Mac combo. Okay, but none of us would be surprised to find out that Tokyo is expensive. That probably is actually comparable to what you'd pay in San Francisco or New York. Okay, so Tokyo is expensive compared to a lot of America, but not more expensive than most of it. Okay, so this is the reason that people are actually using those exchange rates. The question now is, where do these numbers actually come from? Well, that's where figure 17-2 comes in. And the problem with figure 17-2, and let me bring it over here. Okay. Now I'm using the hardcover edition of the book, so it's chapter 9 in this book. Okay. The problem with this is that they have one diagram instead of two. Okay. Now they're talking about euros. We're going to be talking about dollars and yen, but really what there ought to be is two diagrams kind of near each other, not side by side, but near each other. So let me write this way, or draw this way. Okay. One would have the quantity of dollars here, and another one here would have the quantity of yen. And I think I've gone out of range of my camera there. Okay, so let me go to a new page. One would have the quantity of dollars here, and another one would have the quantity of yen over here. Now I've drawn those kitty corner to each other for a reason, and the reason is I put diagrams right on top of each other if the same variable is on the horizontal axis, and it's not. I put them next to each other if the same variable is on the vertical axis, and it's not. Okay? So the book is correct that if you're doing a diagram with quantity of dollars on this axis, you want a price of dollars on this axis defined in yen per dollar. Okay? Now the book is doing euros, it's just the opposite of that, but that's okay. Okay? So down here we're going to want the price of yen, but that's going to be the reciprocal of that. That's going to be dollars per yen. Okay? So what the book needs to do and doesn't, and probably because it's more complex, but the thing is, you know, if you don't make it complex enough to get it to work, I'm not sure what good it is to have the diagram, and I don't think that they've got enough detail in there. Okay? What happens in the real world is that there's a demand for dollars and a supply of dollars. And there's a demand for yen and a supply of yen. Okay? And these things intersect and determine a price and a quantity right here. Okay? And this would be something like the 1 over 100 from the previous page. Okay? And then this one up here, okay, would be the one that was like 100 yen over $1. Okay? And again, those are reciprocals of each other. That's intentional. Okay? Not intentional, it's the way that it has to be, the way that it's defined. Okay, so here's what happens when an American goes to Japan. If we think about this market over here, The supply of dollars and the demand of dollars is defined by people wanting to make purchases in the United States. If you're going to buy stuff in the United States, you need dollars, so you're demanding them. The supply of dollars is actually the people who already have dollars that may want to get rid of them. So if you're going to Japan, what you're going to do is start out with a supply like this. I'll call that 1. And then you're going to increase your supply of dollars. Okay? Now, why is that? It's because you're not going to use those dollars in the United States to make purchases. You want to get rid of those dollars. So you're going to supply them to people who are going to make purchases. Okay? Now, the reason that you need 2 diagrams is you're giving up those dollars to give yen. And here's a trick. Okay? When you supply dollars, what you want to get and use is yen, and it's your demand for yen that shifts to the right. So that goes from 1 to 2 as well. So these 2 shifts go together. They're not separate, okay? This one and this one are 2 sides of the same coin. But you notice what happens here. When you want to take dollars out of the United States, that puts downward pressure on the exchange rate. And when you want to get yen to make purchases in Japan, that puts upward pressure on their exchange rate, okay? Downward pressure on an exchange rate is called depreciation. Upward pressure on an exchange rate is called appreciation. Now, people like to interpret those things as good or bad, and I encourage you not to do that, okay? They're just descriptions of reality. They don't have good and bad aspects to them. People make stuff like that up to screw up your thinking. Don't fall for it, okay? Now, the thing that to remember is there's lots of Americans going to Japan, putting pressure on our currency to depreciate and theirs to appreciate, but there's lots of people in Japan coming over to the United States, and so they're putting pressure on their currency to depreciate and our currency to appreciate. Okay, so there's a combination of those on all days, and you usually don't see these things move around too much. They move all the time, but not necessarily in a very large amount. Okay. All right, now another thing that we do with trade, because again, we're humans, we get focused on the wrong sorts of things, is people think that this is all about trade in goods and services or about tourism. I'm using tourism as an example because it's easy. Most of you have been tourists. You kind of get the idea, and you've at least thought about going to foreign countries. All of you have bought imports before, so you kind of know how that works as well. Okay? But the point of the fact is, most of your international trades in currency do not have to do with goods or with services. What they have to do with is assets and liabilities, claims of ownership of various things. Particularly stocks, bonds, securities, titles, options, all sorts of things. Now, you've all seen pictures of financial markets where there's all these people in suits sitting around at computers trading thousands or millions or billions of dollars worth of stuff. And we have had SUU graduates who, within a couple years of graduating from SUU, are making literally billion-dollar trades. Okay. There's much, much more money floating around in that than there is in trade in goods and services, and it moves faster because it's all going through the internet, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all day long, whereas goods actually have to be shipped from one place to another. That takes time. And services, when we import or export them, a lot of times a person actually has to come to the country to consume them. So I've said in class most of the time that when I have international students in my macro class, I'm actually exporting education. But in order for me to export education, a foreign student has got to apply to an American school, get accepted to an American school, gets the money to actually pay for it, come over here, go to class and whatnot. It takes months, okay? Whereas these trades over the internet, even though they might be in billions of dollars, are basically instantaneous, okay? So most of this action that we see in appreciation and depreciation is huge trades that you and I don't see that are going on all the time, and some are going up and some are going down, and these demand and supply curves are constantly wiggling back and forth, changing those exchange rates by a little bit, okay? And then you and I experience that when we go to those countries. Okay? All right, that's enough for this one. I'll come back and talk to you in another video. Thanks. Bye.